Well, hello everyone. I hope you're doing well, staying safe, staying healthy at home, and glad that you're joining us on our second virtual community conversations with our preschool and elementary parents on what's going on with remote learning, answering some questions that you have, giving you further guidance. With anything that's new, we did have some online learning aspects of our curriculum in the past, but with anything new, we're going to learn more, we're going to do better, we're going to grow as we go throughout this. So what we want to do today is to give you an update on some of the things that have been going on, some of the lessons that we've learned, where we're going to kind of evolve and grow our plans a little bit. We're going to answer some of the questions that you asked last time that we didn't have an opportunity to get to. And then lastly, we are going to answer any questions that you submit via the live Google form that was sent to you via email yesterday. So we hope that you find this informative and that we're able to answer a lot of your questions, give you some additional clarity, and let you know where we're going in the next week or so as a district. So as you can see, sharing slides again with you. I don't know if you saw this. This was floating around a lot of social media channels last week, but I think it's a nice summary of kind of where we're at as a state, as a nation, and as a community and a school district. And I'm not going to read it to you, but basically, for those of you that can't see it based on your display, it says, with the COVID crisis, we're all in the same boat. However, we're not all in the same storm. And as I asked last time and shared last time, that I hope our parents understand that when we make decisions, we have to make decisions for over 5,500 students and thousands of parents. And as the slide shares, for some of us, the storm is just a little bit of a sprinkle. It's okay. We're managing, we're making do, we're getting used to it. And if you equate that to work, maybe the work that we're providing in preschool or elementary, you may see, hey, I need more. It's not enough. It's not exactly what I'm looking for. And then we have other folks that, it's not a sprinkle, it's a storm. And things are a little more hectic for them and their family and their kids. And so, where we're going may be just right for them. And maybe this is enough. We can't take on anymore with all that's going on. And lastly, there's folks that, whether it's a tornado like we had, or strong winds like we had down in Medina the other day, or a hurricane, things are extremely hectic. It's hard to keep track of the daily work and what's going on. And what we're providing as a school district is way too much. So I hope this kind of paints a picture that we're doing what's in the best interest of what we feel is in the best interest of in our kids and our community. But we also understand that with the variety of needs, it may be different and you may have a different experience based on your family. So we hope that we'll be able to give some clarity, answer some questions, and continue to have a meaningful dialogue with you even in a virtual setting. So going to our slides, just as a reminder, all of our links are, we've updated them a little bit to make sure they were even more accessible. So if I slide to our webpage, you should be able to see that under the shortcuts, that remote learning plans and resources is the top link there. That extended closures, which are all my emails, communications, that's number 2. We also put it underneath every headline. So again, I'm showing you the district page, but this is the same format for every one of our building pages. The other thing I wanted to share with you, just because this was a frequently asked question in the first couple of days of the elementary plans, if you go to our remote resources or learning plans and resources, you'll see where you've been accessing the tic-tac-toe boards for your age level or our preschool plans. You'll notice right here, we've enlarged a link that was there, but was being missed. So if you're an elementary family and you're saying, hey, I need to get on Lexia, Raz Kids, Go Math, whatever the digital platform may be, and you can't remember where you saw the directions to log in or the directions and passwords to access, you will see that we've got some links here with some nice resources for you to look at how do you access different platforms from home. And some, if not all of these, are videos that'll walk you through it. So that's where we want to just guide you to. If you have those questions, go to that website. It'll help answer all of your questions for student learning platforms and resources that are there, as we talked about, Lexia, Go Math, a variety of other ones. Also, I just want to remind everyone of our focus for remote learning. what we have told our teachers and the direction we've given them is we want them to focus not on every single thing that was going to be covered trimester 3, but what are the essential components of the standards that they needed to cover? What are those key learning aspects that are critical for our students to know and be able to do and have a level of competency with as they move to the next grade level? And so that's where their areas of focus are, and that's where, and the foundation for how we develop the tic-tac-toe boards, because our goal is to continue learning, to create lessons that are engaging, that are motivating and inspiring, to give choice at the elementary level and options, and to make sure that as we go forward, it's not a bare minimum foundation. Our goal is not just reducing gaps in student learning. Our goal is to increase student learning as much as we possibly can so that we can alleviate as many of those gaps that may be there when students come back. And we're also starting to plan when we eventually do come back to school, what are we going to do as a school district to address some of those components that kids would be missing from living in a remote learning environment for a quarter of their school year if we do not come back on May 4th. The other thing that I wanted to remind, because we are doing a little change to our breakfast and lunch distribution for families in need. So if you are a family that is picking up our lunches and breakfast, you've been doing it on Mondays and Wednesdays. Effective next week, we're just going to Wednesdays. So we're going to provide you with food for an entire week, breakfast and lunch for the entire week. But we're going to go to a 1 day a week pickup, and that's Wednesdays. So based on the governor's current closure order, those pickups will be April 15th, 22nd, and 29th. And finally, we've talked about this before, but district playgrounds, athletic fields are closed. I would also encourage your children that if they're going up to school property, to please, if they're to just stick with your family. If other students are going up there, please maintain the social distancing requirements that are put in place. So we can do everything we can to get back to school and get back to learning and get back to where we were, or as best as we can get back to where we were prior to this pandemic hitting. We want to see our kids, we want to see our families and school reopen for our kids. So the more we can do our part, the better chance we have of being ready to go May 4th, or if not, hopefully for at least the start of the 2020-21 school year. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through and highlight some areas, answer your questions, and then if you remember from last time, Aaron will be sharing with us some questions as we go throughout on each topic, and then we'll have a chance for that at the end. So the first one I'm going to take is what's some feedback from the first week of remote learning? What went well? Where can we improve? So I may have mentioned it last time, but the idea that we have completely shifted our organizational structure and framework for education in really 2 work weeks and have things up and running for remote learning. I'm extremely proud of what we've been able to do as a district and the remote learning experiences that we're able to provide for our students in preschool and elementary grade. I also really like the approach that we've taken in terms of giving students and families choice, whether it be through the themes of the preschool, through the weekly book themes, or whether it be through the tic-tac-toe boards in math and English language arts at the elementary level. So we know things aren't perfect. We know that we had some tech issues that we had to work through and settings on the links the first day or so, but we worked hard to get those up and going. And altogether, the comments that we've been receiving have been pretty positive. That doesn't mean there's not opportunities to learn and grow and reflect. And so one of the challenges that I've posed to our staff as we move into the next week of this, or the future weeks of the tic-tac-toe boards of the elementary level, is to continue to reflect on what are those essential learning components. Are we creating experiences that give autonomy, that give choice, that give options? Is it work that is meaningful, is engaging, inspiring for students, that focuses on those key learning standards and moves learning forward? And most importantly, is that it's applicable in a remote learning setting. We understand that some of the tricks of the trade that we use when we have students in front of us, you may not have the resources, the materials, the technology, whatever it may be in home to recreate learning. So we were challenging our teachers to make sure that whatever we're creating is meaningful, but can also be completed without frustration and at home in a remote setting. One of the things that we're focused on moving forward is how do we define what are key aspects of the remote learning work that we're doing that we want to collect, and how do we do that in an elementary setting, in a preschool setting? And then secondly, how are we going to provide, and how are teachers going to provide meaningful feedback to your children and to you about your student learning, so students can continue and families can continue to see, how is my child progressing towards mastery of the learning outcomes, of the success criteria, of what we want kids to learn for the areas of focus that we have. So that's something that we've started working on, and we're going to continue to work on. As I think we all know, we're building the plane as we're flying it. And these are areas that we need to say, okay, we've got remote learning, we've got a good foundation, we've got parents and students getting acclimated to it. When we're ready to add another layer to that in terms of the submittal and feedback, we'll do that. As a side note, we are aware of the issue with email for our students that are 5th grade and younger. If you haven't figured this out yet, I know some of you have tried to scan documents or from your personal adult email your children, and it gets bounced back. We have a safety setting that no students in K-5 could get an email from outside of the SES Mustangs organization. It's a safety precaution. We're reviewing that and seeing if there's any options, because we know students want to share their work with their teachers. As parents, you're taking a picture of it or scanning it, but then you're getting stuck and there's a lot of loop or roadblocks that you got to get through to get it to the teacher from there. So I just want to let you know that's on our radar, and we're working on that as well. So that's kind of where we're at with remote learning plans, what's on the radar. I'm sure you'll have some questions as we go throughout. But what I want to do right now is I'm going to turn it over to our curriculum director, Aaron. And Aaron, if you can read so everybody can hear the question, but if you can give us an update on questions 2, 4, and 5.
Okay, absolutely. Good afternoon. So question 2 is asking about what Dr. Ryba just discussed. How are we going to make sure that kids are on track, they're ready for next year? You know, how are teachers going to know where to start? How much review is going to need to happen? That's an excellent question. Something, as we know, the whole nation is dealing with because of what's happening. As Dr. Ryba talked about already, that's been our goal this whole time, is to identify the essential standards, the key components in our curriculum. So Ohio Department of Education, if you're not aware, they have standards for every subject area. And what we as teachers do and as staff is we're starting to look through what are the critical, the priority standards, the essential standards that need to be focused on so that when kids move forward, they have that base knowledge. Unfortunately, we're not able to create the entire school day experience from home, but what we've directed our teachers to do, again, is to look at those key priority standards. So with elementary, you're going to start to see those highlighted, not next week, but the following week. The first 2 weeks, we put work out there via the tic-tac-toe boards, and we're doing review. So we know we had those 3 weeks of some optional activities prior to this first full week of online learning. So this week you're seeing kind of to get us back in the swing of things. Where were kids? What were they working on before this extended break? Moving forward, the week after next, teachers are designing their lessons, their tic-tac-toe boards. You're going to see that we've identified key standards, priority standards, essential standards, whatever you want to call them, so that the focus of those boards will be on those few standards. And that will be in English language arts, which includes your reading and writing. It will be in math, and then we'll also have our science and social studies. In addition to our specials areas are doing those as well. So looking into next year, yes, it's probably going to look a little bit different as we start the school year. But if you think about it, we always review because of the summer slide. So we'll do a review, assuming we're back in the fall. Teachers will pick up, they'll look at the grade before, those essential standards from the trimester 3. They may do some pre-assessment and some differentiation to ensure that kids have that so that we can build on that foundation. So that's our goal. As again, Dr. Ryba said, we have to adjust. We'll see what that looks like. Fortunately or unfortunately, we're not alone in this. It's the nation. We're dealing with it. We are absolutely going to put forth our best efforts to keep kids from having those gaps and, just do the best we can with what we have and where we are with everything. Moving on to question 4, social studies and science. How are they addressed in the tic-tac-toe boards? So this question was posed, I think, prior to us releasing the boards. Hopefully you've seen now that those subject areas are integrated. For K2, just like they do in the classroom, they focus on either science or social studies for like a 2-week period. In grades 3, 4, and 5, you'll see activities for science and social studies on the ELA board. So we want to incorporate it with good, best instructional practices. So you'll see some prompt or an article that's dealing with science and or social studies, and then the writing, the activities, whatever activities go with it are the reading and writing components, so they're integrated. You'll especially see that, as I talked about, moving forward when we're identifying those essential standards in the science, the social studies, as well as the ELA and math. Number 5, the question was brought up, what's the difference in our remote learning plans for the full-day kindergarten and the half-day kindergarten? And again, that's an excellent question. This first week, we didn't differentiate too much. We wanted to get our youngest learners, our kindergarten students, as well as our staff familiarized. What's this going to look like? What are our schedules? How do we facilitate all of this? And then starting next week, we're going to have a full day kindergarten additional, we'll call it a learning opportunity. And I'm excited for this. It's going to be a project-based learning or a STEM activity. So not just an isolated one-time thing, but more of a week-long project. So it's going to involve the standards of communication and collaboration. It's going to do a lot of problem solving and designing and those skills that kids are going to start to need. Well, they do need them, but as they'll continue to move on through high school and into their careers. So it's an open-ended opportunity. I think the kids are going to enjoy it. It's the creative type problem solving. And hopefully if you have a full day kindergarten student, you've heard from your teacher a little bit about the project, but that will start Monday as well. And we're being cognizant that you may not have a ton of materials laying around at home. Your time may be limited. So we're doing what we feel is best to ensure that our full day students are getting that enhanced time enrichment with the content and exposure to some of those extra skills and components that we want to make sure our learners have. And I think that is all for the questions that I had right now.
That is, Erin. Thank you so much. The other question that's in there, that number 3, that I'll address is, are teachers still posting assignment completion in PowerSchool? So not at this time, but that is something that we, as we take a look at our remote learning plans, our grading procedures, and how we're going to communicate. We talked about that work submittal and feedback. That is an option we do have in PowerSchool. We're working through that right now. And ultimately, we will be moving towards that assignments would be posted into PowerSchool and marked. Obviously, we're not grading, as we talked about, for trimester 3, but as completed or incomplete based on those that are assigned and asked to be submitted versus those that are just assigned. So we don't have that up and running yet, but that will be ready to go probably in the next week or so as we continue to evolve and learn more in our remote learning plan. Moving on to question 6, I'm going to ask our Director of Student Services, Andy Trujillo, to give us an update on how we're helping to support our students with disabilities and our families. Andy?
Sure, yeah. The question here, or the statement, is update on progress connecting with our students with disabilities. Well, first off, I want to thank all the parents in our community as we adapt and adjust to this new remote learning. Our staff are working hard to get used to this new situation, and special education staff have been in contact with students and parents to collaborate on the best ways to try to meet the unique needs of all of our learners. Our staff will be collecting data to the best of their ability to measure progress of IEP goals and objectives. This has been a challenging aspect of supporting students remotely, but our staff has been resilient. Staff cannot use data collected by parents, so this has meant that our staff is finding new ways to measure how students are progressing. So certainly we appreciate the collaboration of all of our parents If you have any questions at any time, please contact me.
Thank you, Andy. Moving on to number 7, I know Jenny and a variety of people have, Jenny Pelko, our assistant superintendent, have done a tremendous amount of work of looking at what will kindergarten registration look like in a virtual or remote or socially distanced setting. So Jenny, why don't you share with our families that are looking to register their kindergarten students for next year what that process will look like.
Thank you, Dr. Ryba. And I hope everybody's doing well and staying healthy. Yeah, so this morning, actually, those of you who have pre-registered for kindergarten for full day and or half day should have gotten an email about the requirements that are needed. We want to get started on this because there are a lot of forms and documents to collect, and so we want to make sure that everybody's registered correctly, and therefore we can know our numbers and make sure we staff appropriately. So the first thing in the email, if you didn't get it, but if you just didn't, make sure you just check your email, check your spam, check everything, make sure you got it. And if you didn't get it, we can, reach out to me. I can make sure that you get the information. But the first thing we really need is to make sure that you're still, your decision to go to full day kindergarten and or half day kindergarten has not changed. That's important as we staff. So that's one thing that we definitely want to know. If your situation has changed, just please let us know so we can make those changes. A couple things that you're going to need for kindergarten registration is a certified birth certificate, proof of residency, which can be a utility bill, from March or April. It could be gas, electric, sewer, water, any of those would work. Even a cable bill or a signed lease agreement works. Any custody agreements, we need to have those. Immunization record, we need a copy of that. And obviously, if your child has an IEP or an ETR, we would need a copy of that as well. So we have some options for you to submit these documents, and we're going to take these all the way up until April 30th. So we wanted to give you plenty of time to get these to us. I know, with everything going on, sometimes you need to locate these things. But if you can't get it by April 30th, just let us know, and we'll work with you. But you can scan and email them, and you're going to email them to Sue Koheiser, our registrar. Her email is online. It's SKOCHEISER@scsmustangs.org. Sue Koheiser is her name. And you can scan and email your documents to her. You can also use a Dropbox. We have a Dropbox located right outside of our administrative offices that would work if you want to drop off copies of the documents for now. You can also just take pictures of them with your phone and scan and email them to her at her address as well through email. So any of those options work. If something doesn't work for you, please just let us know, and we will work with you. And again, we would like these by April 30th. From there, we will continue to send updates and emails on, a lot's going to depend on when we're open as far as kindergarten screening that usually takes place in August. So we'll get you all the information you need and get everybody registered for kindergarten. So thank you.
Thanks for the update, Jenny. Moving on to some additional questions, let's get some updates on technology. So our Director of Instructional Technology, Dave Binkley, will get on line with us. And Dave, if you can share some updates to questions 8 and 9 for us.
Can do, Dr. Ryba. So number 8 says an update on Chromebook distribution and Chromebook repair. We are still distributing Chromebooks as the need arises for our students. If you are in need of a Chromebook and you have not received one yet, please send me an email. My email is online, and I will send you a copy of the agreement contract, and we'll set up a time to pick up the device. We just finished our 3rd round of Chromebook distribution last night. Concerning Chromebook repair, if you are K5 in this conversation, if there is an issue with the Chromebook, there is a link on the remote learning website, or there's a link on that half sheet of paper that was within the bag when you receive the Chromebook, and you can fill that out. I will get back to you with either troubleshooting via email, or we'll set up a time where you can swap the device and get a new one, so that way your remote learning will not be impacted that much. And for number 9, it says Zoom is blocked on SCS Chromebooks. Are students supposed to be using Zoom? And the answer to that is no. We have it blocked for a reason. There's a lot of safety issues right now with Zoom. Whenever the instructional technology department starts to review any kind of application or software, there's a lot of criteria that goes into that. And we saw some potential issues with Zoom early on. And so we try to stay within our system, which is Google Meet or Google Hangouts Meet. And so that's what we're asking our teachers to use and our staff to use when communicating with students through video conferencing.
Thank you, Dave, for those updates. And just as a reminder, just as a general reminder, as you get Chromebooks, if you're not familiar with Chromebooks, they are Wi-Fi wireless devices only. If you do not have an internet connection at home or a hotspot, they do not function like a laptop. They're not going to work for you at home. So you need a Wi-Fi signal or a hotspot through your phone. And also, please understand that some of these Chromebooks have been sitting for 2-3 weeks without being charged. So if you open up your Chromebook and it doesn't turn on, it doesn't mean it's not working. It just means sometimes that the battery's dead. So plug it in, try it again, and see if that works for you. But I appreciate Dave and the entire tech department's work. I think we're over 1,200 Chromebooks that have been distributed. We're going to continue to keep our parents that need Chromebooks moving forward to get those in your hands. And so go to that website, that remote learning plan for the break fix, as well as other opportunities to get the Chromebook if needed. Now, moving on to our next topic of, I'm sorry, I skipped one, number 10, about are we required to submit completed work to teachers? If so, how will that be done? I shared or alluded to that answer earlier. There's nothing that's, there may be some things required, or teachers will say, hey, share this with me. I'd like to see what you're doing. Teachers will direct that individually. It's probably pretty minimal right now at the elementary level. We're going to give clarity to our staff on that in the weeks to come, and how to do that because of the email challenges we talked about before. And most of our elementary students and their teachers are not using platforms like Unified Classroom or Google Classroom or things of that nature that make it easier to submit. So do the best you can right now. There's no grades trimester 3, right? So no students are going to be penalized, and teachers are understanding that we may be working through how to do this in an easy and seamless fashion. But we'll be giving further direction to our staff and to our parents on submittal of work and how that can look in an effective and efficient manner in the near future. Now with that, we're going to transition to building and facility access and a variety of topics that our operations manager, Steve Breckner, are going to address for you in terms of what you may have at home that you need to return or what's at school that you may need to get. So Steve?
All right, so the first question I'm going to address is people are wanting an update on returning to schools to gather essential materials. If you've been, and hopefully you have, as well as we have, been paying attention to the governor and his mandates right now, we're coming into a period of 2 weeks where all the experts are feeling we're going to be seeing the peak start to hit of the number of cases. And of course, they're asking for everybody to stay in place as much as possible to stop the spread of the virus. So in saying that, we do have a plan. We have a plan that we feel addresses the need of getting into the buildings safely, limiting the number of people into the buildings, being respectful and responsible when it comes to social distancing. However, it does not make sense to us right now in this period of 2 weeks where the governor is asking everyone to stay inside to reduce the number or the spread of the virus in this peak time to open up our schools. So as we get closer to that May 1st date, we're hoping to get more direction from the governor regarding if we are going to be coming back into session this year or if it's going to be where we no longer have school in session for the remainder of this year, and then, of course, mandates moving forward from there. So the plan has been worked out. What we will be doing is sending out information that will allow students and parents to come into the various buildings, not only by grade level, but also alphabetical, and also restricting access through the buildings from certain points, again, to limit the amount of people coming in and out of the buildings and congregating within the buildings themselves. So that is the most up-to-date information that we have to give, is that the plan is been worked out. It is ready to go. We just are awaiting the time that the governor is going to say that it's appropriate for us to implement that plan. The second question is, my kids have school library books that they'd like to return. How and when should we return them? That will be communicated to you from the individual buildings. Right now, of course, if you have a school library book, there's no fee that's being assessed or any kind of penalty. Please just make sure you know where those are, and then we will, the buildings will communicate with you the appropriate time to return those and get those back into the schools. My kids have finished up the artwork from class that we'd like to pick up. How or when can we pick them up? That would also be something that could be accomplished in this plan that we'll roll out when it's appropriate. All of that artwork is there. There's been no one in the buildings other than we have custodians coming in once a week at this point to do building checks. We've had secretaries come in to sort mail and make sure that we're gathering the essential pieces of mail, such as invoices and bills, and get those to the treasurer's department. Other than that, we had one day where staff could come in and get essential items for them to do the online learning opportunity component. And everything has been safe and sound, locked up inside the building. So once we open up the buildings and you feel like you would want to pick up that artwork, then we will be able to accommodate that at that time.
Thank you, Steve, for that update. A couple more questions, and then we'll open it up to questions that you may have submitted online. The next few on events and extracurriculars. I'll take the first one is for the kids entering 6th grade next year. How will 6th grade camp trip be handled if we don't have school until the fall? I cannot answer that question because the 6th grade trip is not a school-sponsored trip. So usually at this time of year, I get notified of who the parent volunteer that's coordinating the trip is, and they communicate directly with our families, and we approve dates. So I can't recall off the top of my head whether I've seen that yet, but that's something that happens outside of the school district. And whenever that parent volunteer, that group is ready to go, they will be sharing that. Our job is really to approve the dates and let them know if they work in our calendar. So if any parents are aware of the process for this year, feel free to email me and I can share it out to our 5th grade parents. But again, that's something that's handled outside of the school district, just like if you have middle school children, the 8th grade DC trip, same idea. Number 15, my daughter is in 5th grade and we are wondering if the kids don't go back to school, will there be still a 5th grade graduation? That's a big deal to them and they get awards, etc. We actually had a virtual meeting with all of our administrative team yesterday. They are talking about ideas and options to still have 5th grade recognition ceremonies, however that may look. If we can have it in person, obviously that's an easy one, but if not, what would be some alternative means to celebrate this big event in our students' lives? So I don't have any details right now. They're going to take it as a small group, as an elementary principal group, and discuss some options. They may be reaching out to our PTA committees that support this for some ideas as well, but that's on the radar. They're starting to throw around some ideas, and we'll have more to come on that topic. And then number 16, would something like preschool graduation be rescheduled in the event that school is closed for the remainder of the year? So yeah, this is preschool. We moved away from a formal preschool graduation program last year to a different sort of event that met the needs of our preschoolers. But in terms of whatever end of the year events, whether it be in preschool or kindergarten through 5th grade, if it's a monumental event outside of end of year class parties or field days or things of that nature, if it's a significant ceremony or event that we've had, our staff, our administrative staff, is working on alternative means to have that. So one of the things, just so kind of everybody is aware of our cadence for our decision making, right now we are focused on what do we need to do between April 6th and May 1st, which is our current closure and our focus on remote learning. and making the best decisions we possibly can with the information and resources we have for that time period. As soon as the governor makes a decision, whether it's coming back on May 4th or whether it's extending the closure, then we will shift our focus to that next segment of decisions of what are we going to do if we're closed the rest of the year? What decisions do we have to make for May 1st through May 29th? Now, some of those in the older grades we've made, prom, commencement, things that we have venues and have to schedule and reschedule, and it's outside of our control. We've worked on those early, but things that are within our control and are on property, we will be focusing on all of those end of the year decisions after we figure out the governor's stance on schools and we get closer to that May 4th date. So we do have one more formal question, and I'm going to turn that over to Jenny, who's going to talk about scheduling. Jenny?
Thank you, Dr. Ryba. So yeah, the question is, what is the plan for scheduling for other grades? So kind of interpreting this more toward 5th grade students going into the middle school next year. If your child has not turned in their form and registered formally, there is a link on the middle school website, and I believe it's entitled 2021 course registration. So they would need to fill out that form. However, if you're unsure if they've done this or not, I know our elementary principals and perhaps school counselors will be reaching out to those that need to register. So they will reach out to your 5th grader or to you and let you know, hey, you need to go out and fill out that form online. So I hope that answers the question. For all other grade levels, when we look at enrollment and we're looking and we're moving the kids up to the next grade level, and if you were one that was misplaced or put at a different school or asked for an out of boundary, Sue Koheiser, our registrar, should be reaching out to everybody regarding that process as well. So I hope that answers the question. If not, let me know and I can be more specific. Thank you.
Thanks, Jenny. And I was just informed that we do have information on 6th grade camp. It was shared via our weekly email, our Mustang Moments. So if you're on our email list, which hopefully all of you are, based on how you've registered in the system, you should be seeing the Mustang Moments every Friday. If you check out last week's, it has information on 6th grade camp, and I'm sure Dan Faust, our communications coordinator, will put that out there again. So take a look for it either tonight or tomorrow, whenever it gets sent out for updates on 6th grade camp. So with that, that ends the questions that we received or needed to follow up from last week for this week. And Aaron, I'm going to ask you, is there anything that's been submitted via the online form that we can answer right now?
Yes, there absolutely are some questions. The first two I'll take if that's okay with you.
Sure.
We did cover these, but I'd like to reiterate them because they are important. So the first one is talking again about, teachers are putting a lot of work into the remote learning and they're appreciative. However, are we going to cover new material? For example, in Go Math, continuing with that. And that answer again is yes. So we worked these first 2 weeks to get kids back in the routine, the schedule, figure out the online platform, not overwhelm them, but we are going to continue to move forward with that new content. Second question is, how is that new content going to be presented? Are teachers responsible for explaining or presenting it? And again, that answer is yes. The direction that our elementary principals have been given and they've then given to the teachers is we want to see the teachers' faces on the screens. We want interaction when they're teaching, because kind of what we told them, if everybody could just learn from clicking a link, we wouldn't need teachers. We wouldn't need me. We wouldn't need any of us. So it's imperative that they're putting their face on the screen. They're doing the teaching. Another question asks, what does that look like for elementary? And that is tricky because we're dealing from all ages, from 5 all the way up. We have to be careful of privacy and cognizant of what kids can do and what they should be asked to do. But you are going to see things like a Google Meet. We have safety precautions in place so that it is private. We can expand upon that if there are further questions, but we can monitor who's in the Google Hangout, when kids can enter, what they can do and say, and when they leave. We've been using, I know especially in 4th grade, Flipgrid is something that's really cool that our teachers have engaged in, and other grade levels as well. But you can do videos, kids can do videos back, and there's conversation and interaction that way. So you will start to see, again, there's next week and then the following 2 weeks that we're working on right now. That's when we're really going to expand upon the new content and the teaching by the teachers, using the videos, using the Hangouts, using some of those tech tools that we're learning at the same time. So the next question then is talking about, these are a couple tech question type things. One says, why are there so many online assignments that link to PDFs that can't be open in Google Docs? So they have to print them. It's an added expense. So I don't know if you want me, Cameron, to take that, or if you want to take that, or Dave.
If you want to start, Aaron, then we can go from there.
Okay. I would think, and correct me if I'm wrong, as long as you're in a Google platform, so if your student logs in with their SCS account, any PDF that they click on is within our Google platform, our Google Drive, so it should open. So if you're experiencing issues where you can't open something, I would have your student log into their Gmail, their SCS account, which then puts them into our Google Drive. That should be able to open them up as a PDF. A question or an answer about the printing, please don't feel that you have to print everything out. I know sometimes that's more helpful for kids to have it printed, and that's okay, but what we're trying to do are give you options. So if you want to write things on just a piece of paper and have kids do it that way to mirror what the printed sheet would look like, you can do that. If you want them to just orally tell you answers, that can be something they do as well. I know it's dependent upon what type of assignment it is and what the teacher's looking for, but we have to be creative and we have to be compassionate in this time, knowing that we don't all have the same resources. We do also have the paper copies that are available at buildings. So those are out in front of each elementary building. It does have the center activity printed off, and it has the needed components of that center activity. And then it has 1 or 2 other activities. I do have to say that it's not the complete board of every single activity, because some of those aren't tech, or they're tech needed. They're links to videos or they're links to something online. But we have included enough non-tech items that students can do that in that capacity. So if there's any follow-up there with Dave or Cameron.
Yeah, I'd just like to add, Aaron, I think that was a great summary. And, I'd ask everybody just to remember the directions for the tic-tac-toe boards, which is that you have to do the center square. So we're providing you with printed copies if you need them at the buildings for that center square. Then as you go out, you just have to create, at a minimum, a connecting of 3 vertical, horizontal, or diagonal. And we're going to provide copies of those that require a possible copy. So for those of you, and we encourage you to do that, want to go beyond those 3, yes, there may be some. And I hope, as you know, whether it's from your work experience or other personal experience, that not every document we get is editable or in a Google Doc or Word doc. Some things come in PDFs and you have to transfer them and use those suggestions that Aaron said. But I believe that we've tried to cover what we're requiring kids to do. We're giving access through copies at the school. We're giving access through our partnership with Staples to print that off for you at no cost. And we're giving access to a variety of activities that require no printing to do that. So you're exactly correct. It's not a perfect system that we're going to be able to recreate and have everything that's paper free. Especially as needs of kids are. I'd rather do it with paper and pencil, but we think we've done a decent job of covering what is required and giving parents options to not have to use their own ink or own printer at home. Other questions, Aaron?
Sure. This one just adds on to that a little bit, and it has to do with turning in the work to the teachers. So with 2 kids in the district, some things are needing to be printed or screenshots sent to the teacher. It's a lot of printing. They don't have unlimited ink access. It's hard to leave to go to Staples. So one more time, can you just reiterate the expectations of what turning the work in looks like, or what it needs to look like? And maybe if someone missed the part at the beginning that you talked about with the email accounts.
Yeah, so we are working through, that's one of the things as we're working through this that, is the first part was how do we get remote learning plans that's easily understood, that's transferable, that's accessible to all of our families, and is meaningful work. And now we're looking at how do we select which works should be submitted, and how do we actually submit that? So I know some teachers are working ahead of the game. And if you're having issues, please just reach out to the teacher via email and say, hey, we're having issues with submitting. Can you give some options or give us a little bit of time? So there's going to be no penalty. We don't want you to get frustrated at home if you're having issues with submitting work. A lot of our teachers are using tech options such as Aaron mentioned, Flipgrid or other options where they can share or taking a picture on your phone and sending it, whatever it may be. We do know that we have an issue with elementary level and parents being able to email their child and their child email their teacher or upload it to a link or whatever it may be in their Google Docs platform because of a security setting we have where our K-5 students cannot receive email from outside of our organizational domain. So we are working through that. So this is the submittal of work should not be a point of frustration right now. We want you to focus on getting comfortable with the remote learning plan, getting comfortable with the work that's there. As I shared in my last answer, if it's something that you do not want to print, be creative and look for other avenues to just write the answers on a sheet of paper or recreate it in some other way. We're trying to alleviate having to ask our parents that you have to, have your own copy center at home. At the same time, I just want to understand from our perspective as well, we're also trying to balance the parents that say, I don't want my child to have all day, every day online and everything in a digital format. My kid needs a break from the computer. They need to be able to do things paper and pencil. So again, just taking a perspective beyond our own immediate home and looking at decisions the district has to make for all parents. We're trying to balance all of that and provide kind of a middle ground. So again, work with your teacher. There's nothing that's going to be of consequence because you're not submitting work, and give us a little bit of time to work out the kinks in what's going to be submitted and how that's going to be submitted in a way that's easy and accessible for everyone.
And I just want to jump in with that, or to continue that as well. You may have noticed, parents, the middle square on the tic-tac-toe boards. Once we got some feedback, we set that to automatically force you to make a copy. So when you open that middle square on the ELA, it doesn't allow you to do anything until you copy it. And all that means is you're saving your own copy. From there, you can share that back out with the teacher because your student or you are in the Google platform. So there were a couple questions this week on why is it forcing me to make a copy? That's the only reason. We were getting a lot of requests for access to the document, to edit, to type in it. And so whoever created that template, which in this case was me, would get 20, 30 emails asking for access. So we hoped that we made that a little bit more streamlined for you. When you click on it, it forces you, it makes a copy. Your student then owns that. So they can type right in it. With Google, they then can share it back with their teacher, and that eliminates some of that printing and turning in that we had talked about. One other question that I'll reiterate here, can elementary do a little bit more of recording lessons like middle and high school? And I think that's a wonderful idea. We recently got in our Google released a way for us to record our meets. So we can either share those out, teachers can share those out using, being cognizant of the privacy concerns, of course, or we have Screencastify, which allows teachers to make a video, share that out. So I do think you'll be seeing more of that. I know you'll be seeing more of that in the upcoming weeks. So 2 questions about teachers and office hours. Is it acceptable, or why would it be acceptable for an elementary teacher to have their office hours from 8:30 to 9:30 a.m. that's outside of the school day? Can it be required that they're available for just more than an hour? And is there a requirement that teachers engage with all students? Some concerns as to the amount of interaction or engagement that this parent, this family is getting from the teachers.
So Aaron, help me if I miss any of those components of the question. But to start off with, in terms of the office hours, what we're trying to balance is providing an office hour for all students to have access to a teacher where that teacher's available. I do understand the concern of, it's outside of the typical elementary day that starts at 9 o'clock. We're also trying to be understanding of our staff and their families, and I don't know the specific teacher, but we have a lot of young kids in our teachers, so that may be a time where there's a family member around or a spouse or somebody to help out if they have young kids. But that's something, if you have a question about office hours, I would encourage you to please reach out to your building principal. That is something that they're overseeing. And so getting into the weeds of the details as to why it's 8:30 or 9:30, they would have more intimate knowledge. And they may say, yeah, you know what, we need to move this to the traditional school day. That makes more sense. So please reach out to your building principal in terms of office hours. In terms of expanding the time, I want everybody to just to kind of reiterate the purpose of office hours. It is not saying that teachers are not going to communicate or contact or work with students outside of that. It's just giving a predetermined time where I know, hey, if I was struggling on this or need some help, I know that my teacher is going to be available from 10 to 11 every day, and I can reach out to them via email, or I can say, hey, can we get online via Google Meet to talk, or can you provide some resources for this for me? So in terms of the office hours, we're not looking to expand those at this time. If we continue in a remote learning setting, we are having internal discussions about what is the pace and the scope of work that we're going to expect each week, and what's going to be the scope of office hours and remediation and support and help. But in these first weeks, we really want to understand the system, get comfortable with the procedures of the system, have you get comfortable with how it works at home and a schedule for your kids to do the work. But please know that if you have a question at 2 o'clock and the office hours end at noon, send an email, reach out. Our teachers are more than willing to help out. And I think the last part of that question, if I remember, is what if I feel that I'm not getting a level of engagement with the teachers that I would be expecting?
Right.
First of all, the direction to our staff has been that we want them to begin to take a look and at different levels. It has different meaning, but students that are not engaging, that we haven't heard from or seen or seen any work submitted. So that expectation is out there that they need to be engaging with kids in a way that it's appropriate for the age level. So that as we take a look at the tic-tac-toe boards and what's out there and what's available for our kids and families, making an assumption, they may be waiting during this week of review and feel that, hey, I'm here to help and support and guide if you have any questions. And if I don't hear from you, that you must be doing okay. So I'll focus on the families and the kids that I'm hearing from. If you're reaching out and you're not getting any response, then to be to the point, that's not acceptable. And you need to reach out to the building principal and share specifically, this is my child, this is my child's teacher. And we've emailed, we've tried to contact, we were stuck and we're not getting any response. We need to do a great job of customer service. And if we're not doing that, then that's our issue to correct, and the building principals will correct that. But if it's more of, hey, I'm waiting for my teacher to reach out and check in on how I'm doing, I would encourage parents to take the first step in that if there's questions or a higher level of engagement that you want. As Erin talked about, as she shared, as we go into the week of April 20th, when the new boards are out, that's going to be new learning material. Yes, that expectation gets raised where teachers should have interaction with the kids, should be having some touch points with the kids, should at least have some live or recorded lessons for students to look at so they could see that, have that virtual interaction or connection. But we both need to do our part to reach out when we're not seeing kids connecting or kids are having trouble, and parents reaching out to us if we can be of any additional help or service. Erin, did I capture anything or everything, or did I miss anything?
I think you did. Thank you. Two more questions. First one is with regards to chat on the Google Documents. Is there a way to turn that off, and or are there expectations with kids as to how to be using that?
So Dave, you can jump in if I miss anything, because we had a conversation about this yesterday. So for those of you, see, the beautiful thing about all of this remote learning is we're all learning new things about instructional technology tools and Google Docs and all of this stuff. As I know it can be taxing and frustrating, I hope we can still see some of the positives of the learning that we've all done as we adapt to new technologies. But one of the things that if you look at the Google Docs or know Google Docs a little bit, they all have a chat function on them. This is different than comment. Comment is where I can comment on a document and add feedback. Chat is just as it sounds like. I can hit the chat icon and a little screen pops up on the side, and I can talk or chat with whoever's looking at the document on the same time. We've looked at that within the Admin Council for Google, and we have not found a way as of yet to turn the chat feature off. We're still looking to see if there's an option there. But when I update, I'm going to try and stick with a pattern of weekly email update to our parents. But when I send the update next week on Monday, one of the things that I will share is, even though we're in a remote setting, school rules do apply. I'll share our acceptable use policy. So something to reiterate with your students and your children, rather, is that even though they're at home, they are engaged in school. Our school handbook still applies. Our acceptable use policy still applies. And as I share with my kids, if you want to put something online or put a video out there, if you think mom and dad would not be happy with it, or you wouldn't be comfortable saying it to me, then you shouldn't be comfortable putting it online or putting it on a chat. So that's the message that we need to share, that as long as we don't have the ability to shut it off, that let's make sure it's school appropriate. Let's make sure that it's something that they would feel comfortable saying to their family or grandparents, whomever it may be. Because if not, even in a remote setting, we still have rules and have alternatives to enact those rules if students violate them.
Okay, last question that we have submitted then at this point. If we do end up returning in May, do you think that we'll have the same restrictions for non-essential visitors applying? So clarifying for PTA, for class parties, field trips, field days, those kind of things. Yeah. How do you anticipate that looking?
Well, I think that's a great question, and a question that will really get into the details of if it does look like we're coming back. But just with anything, it's going to be based on the guidance of the state, the Department of Health. If you've been paying attention to the news and the curve, the modeling that they're doing, depending on the state, it's changing every day. What was 10,000 at our peak, I heard today, is going to be 1,600 at its peak. So I think decisions are going to be based on the best available data at the time. So I can't predict as to what restrictions will be in place. It will be all based on if we come back, what are the guidance and best practices from the governor and the Department of Health, and we will implement those procedures accordingly.
Okay,
so I know
those are
you
all
said
the
last question, but is that officially it, Erin?
That is officially it, yes.
All right, well, thank you for helping out again, Erin, and thank you to all my colleagues for providing their expertise and insight on their questions. Again, this will live online on our webpage moving forward. If you have friends or family that couldn't see it live with us today, just as a heads up, we are not planning on having another one next Thursday. We'll determine if there's new information to share, if there's updates, if we're seeing themes or questions, we will. We'll keep with the same idea of Thursdays at 1 o'clock. And we'll definitely come back, maybe not next week, but the week after, if nothing's pressing. But we appreciate you engaging with us, your patience, your kindness, your compassion as we go through this. Know that although we can't see you and have you enter our buildings, we miss you, we care for you and your kids, and we want nothing but the best for them during this closure. It's been extremely difficult for all of us, I'm sure for you, for a variety of reasons as a family, but for us to take a huge part of what we do and why we do it and not have the opportunity to experience that on a daily basis. And just know that our teachers and our staff are there with you, and we're going to continue to do the best we possibly can for our students and for you, our families. So hope you have a wonderful Passover, a wonderful Easter for those that are celebrating, and a wonderful weekend. And just a reminder that Friday and Monday are days that the district were closed for students. So there will be no remote learning on those days. There'll be no office hours, and everybody can take a long 4-day weekend to catch their breath and get ready for remote learning, which will get back going on Tuesday. Everybody have a great rest of your day.